What's up, Redemption? How you doing? John Hendricks here, as always, for a brand new episode of the Thirsty for podcast. This one on the heels of the first ever Mr. Classic. And what do you know? That stinking Alstad, Jayden, he had to go and win something else, didn't he? We've got him on. We're going to talk also to Marc here about his big upset win over number one seed John Earley. And then we've got some other kind of recap on Mr. Classic and also hitting some recent news and content within the community. So glad you're here. Let's get right into it. All right, guys, welcome into episode number 53 of the Threshing Floor podcast. John Hendricks here, as always. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I guess the first thing is, man, what an awesome event Mr. Classic turned out to be. That thing was fun. I got to see cards that I never thought I'd want to see again or actually see played much at all. And in that, there was a lot of fun. A lot of just getting to hang out, getting that second, annual feeling of hanging out with the boys and just seeing everyone again. I mean, we talk so much about community feel with this game, and it's 100% true. And just getting to go through that, and that experience alone makes the whole ordeal of Mr. Classic and all of the effort and energy to make that thing happen, makes all of that worth it. But on top of that, getting to play some games, have fun, just a good time all around. I guess obviously we have to go ahead and say congratulations to the man that brought it home, and that's none other than Jayden Alstad, who has been winning everything he plays in. I mean, dude is just on an insane tear right now, and if you went and you started listing out the best active players right now, I think that puts it to rest. I don't think there's any way that you could put anyone above him right now as far as best active player. He wins Type 2, wins Type 1, wins Classic. I mean, scrolls only. What can't this guy do? I mean, it's just insane, the kind of tear that he's on right now. And, I mean, it's just going to continue to inspire people to get better just to be able to run with that cat. I mean, just lights out. But I guess we had some other events going on, so we can go over the results for those. We had Booster Draft, and Booster Draft was won. This is a Classic-only Booster Draft. I would like to let everyone know that I ended up playing this format, this category, and oh my goodness, John and the table that we played at first, because we drafted together, he had a good time. Apparently, Jerusalem Tower did not work the way that I thought it did. And I played that, and I got hurt a couple of times. So I had to shuffle my 8 cards, and I couldn't draw. Oh, my goodness. So I definitely did not have the most fun at the first table, but ended up being a fun event overall. And John went on. He won that first game, and he went on to roll through the competition there in the 3 rounds that we played of Classic Booster Draft, and he brought that title home. So he won Booster Draft. At the same time that Booster Draft was happening, there was Type 2 happening, Type 2 Classic, and that was won by Mr. J. Chambers, who said that he wanted to come and win everything. He didn't want to just come and win Mr. Classic. He wanted to win Mr. Classic weekend. He wanted to walk out of there Mr. Classic weekend. Well, I tell you what, Jayden kept that from happening by winning Mr. Classic. So Jay didn't walk out of there Mr. Classic weekend, but he did walk out of there Mr. Weekend because dude won everything else that he played. A perfect 7-0, I believe it was, in Type 1 Classic, playing a deck that he's been playing in rotation play. He used 2 Classic cards, Falling Away and Alexander. And what can you say? Jay is one of those types of people that, because he talks a lot and he's one of those really flamboyant personalities as far as talking strategy and things. Like he likes to mix it up a little bit and throw a little trash talk in there every now and then, and a lot of that leads back to him getting some jokes on the back end. But Jay's a really fantastic player. I got to see him up close and personal when he was here in Alabama, and him and Jeremy both are the reason that I really enjoyed this game, and they pulled me in by the fact that they were so good. And to compete with them, I knew that I had to work really hard to even be competitive against those guys. And that really pulled me into the strategy of the game and all of that. But Jay's someone that has not been to nationals in the past couple of years. Hopefully he's able to make it this year. I know that is the plan. But people just don't realize how good of a player he is because all of the jokes that we throw his way. But, I mean, you got to give it to him. Dude's an insanely good player, and he understands how to win in different formats, different categories, how to adjust his play style enough to work within certain limitations. And, I mean, just look at the man. He's winning with flood. I mean, he's found a way to mix modern and an offense from a few years back that people had, frankly, just about written off. And he's on an insane tear. So, Mr. Weekend, Jay Chambers, give it to him. He did everything he set out to accomplish except for win Mr. Classic. So, congratulations, Jay, on winning those categories. Type 1, 2-player classic, and then Type 2, 2-player classic. And in addition to Mr. Classic and those categories, we also had an Ironman competition going on while all of this was happening. And Ironman was just a classic setup, so you could play pretty much anything. And I believe, the last I heard, unless there was some change there at the end, I believe that Jeremy Chambers ended up winning that. So Mr. Host himself, Mr. Let's set this thing up, he ended up winning Ironman. And so he got the top prize there, but there was prizes given out for the top 3 placings there. A better host would probably know the top 3 placings, but hey, you get what you get. That almost puts it to rest on Mr. Classic. It was a great event. Definitely looking forward to potentially having that again in the future. But as that wraps up, we get ready to focus on major tournament season. And on the back of this recent news section, I do have some pre-recorded conversation with the community wildcard, Mr. Marc Vellake, off of his big upset win against number 1 seed John Earley, and then also Mr. Classic himself, Jayden Alstad. So that's what the body of this episode is going to consist of. But as we get ready to kind of put a bow on what Mr. Classic was, it lets us turn our focus now to the major tournament season. And that's a super exciting prospect because there's a lot to be excited about for this tournament season. And, I mean, there's just a lot to be excited about in general. We've got new starters that have been sent to the printers, new printers, which potentially helps with the increased cost that we were facing with the current printer that we were using, or that Rob was using. I say we because I feel that invested. That's the cool thing about Redemption. As a player, you feel so invested that you're using we, kind of like when you're a really loyal fan of a sports team. Rob was facing those added costs, and unfortunately having to pass them down in the price of super packs is where we saw it so far. We hadn't seen it across any other product lines, but potentially was going to be there. But a new printer hopefully helps, eliminate some of that, or at least give a little bit of flexibility on the pricing there to not have to have such a high increase. I was worried about the printers being discussed as a new format of the starter decks going to the printer. And I was worried about size, but Gabe did come out and say that the goal and the hope is that there is no size difference, although we obviously have to get the product in hand and then see. So that no guarantees can be made that will not be an issue. But the elders have made it a point to explain to Rob that it's really something that needs to be maintained, trying to keep the cards the same size. So definitely thankful that they are in our corner on that. But we'll just have to see how those starters come out. And those are expected to be here in the summer. And that's just as general of a term as I can give you, because that's all that is listed on Rob's website. We know the cards have been sent to printer, but until they actually come in, there's no way to narrow that time frame down, because you have to have product in hand before you can start packaging them and getting them ready for retail sales. So right now we're just kind of at the mercy of the printers. I know another thing that had been mentioned and was a pretty hot topic recently is the fact that the starters have gone to print and there has not been a Kickstarter. And I think that pretty much everyone probably now understands and has seen the information that's come out about that Rob ended up deciding not to use Kickstarter to fund those, and instead he has already sent them to printer. So that's good news. I think a lot of the focus on that, and I mentioned that I was not surprised that Rob ended up backing out of using Kickstarter. And the reason was because I looked up, when it was first announced, I looked up several different smaller projects like this. Maybe not necessarily like this. A lot of them weren't cards. A lot of them were like video games or mobile games type thing. People trying to get funding for just random gaming products. And I thought that was the most comparable. I didn't lean into the whole Christian thing. So I don't know about potentially the comment that religious stuff might get buried. So I can't speak to that because I didn't look that up specifically. But knowing that Rob was already willing to send the starter decks to print and print them and package them, sell them, and the only thing that we were doing the fundraiser for was for him to be able to add in the discount, so that churches and whatnot could get discounts for those, and then to get the additional few cards that were going to be added after Nationals. So knowing that Rob was pretty much already there on funding, just needing to be pushed over the top. And then obviously we know about Roots, and everyone's excited about Roots, but Roots was a stretch goal of that. And it seemed to me like we were so close on the funding already, or Rob just doing that himself, that the main point of the Kickstarter was told to us that it was the starter decks. And this is not of anyone's fault. I'm not trying to say that anyone's at fault for this information. It's just kind of something that evolved as you go through the process. But I think, and maybe this might not be what, led to Rob making that decision, but this is just my outside view of it, or my opinion of just seeing how it developed, is that we were already really close to getting the funding organically, like just Rob paying for it the way that he has done in the past. And we say we're going to do this Kickstarter to get us this extra discount and stuff. And then we're going to put the stretch goal of Roots in there as well. And it seemed like the funding ended up being more for, or needed more for Roots than the starter decks. So it seems like Rob ended up finding a new printer and just going ahead and printing the starter decks. And so now that leaves a project like Roots kind of in the air. And I do know, I will not share any information that is groundbreaking here, but I think it's going to be fair for me to be able to tell you this because of information that I gleaned from some conversation with Chris at Mr. Classic. So if I'm overstepping the boundaries here, Chris can let me know. But I believe it's safe to tell you guys that there will be a fundraiser coming up that will benefit the game and help, fund some projects. I don't know what projects. I can assume that means that Roots would be funded by this fundraiser. But again, I'm not confirming that. I'm not saying that. I just know that a fundraiser will be happening where all of the proceeds will go to Rob and Cactus Game Design to fund the game of Redemption, fund the future of Redemption without having to give that 8 to 10% Kickstarter, because while Kickstarter takes their 5% or whatever it is off the top, they also process payments through Amazon, I believe it is. And then there's an additional 3 to 5% taken off for that as well. That was one of the complaints that a lot of people had when I looked it up, was that they were not made as aware on the front end that second cut was being taken out. And then when they went to close it out, they had that cut taken out. And of course, it's there in the fine print and all of that. They're not hiding that information, but you have to kind of seek it out to know it. They don't make it as upfront as that 5% that Kickstarter takes off the top. So a fundraiser is happening. I will tell you that. I can confirm that for you guys, what it's going to fund and the what it's going to entail, any type of benefit you get for making donations. All of that is completely beyond my scope. So I'm telling you in general, there is a fundraiser coming up. So continue to save your money if you want to support the future of the game. All of that is still going to be happening, just not using Kickstarter as the medium to do it. In a similar vein, and this is maybe where Chris gets himself in trouble, but there was some talk of Israel's rebellion going on at Mr. Classic. For you guys that were not able to make it, man, I wish I could share everything that I know, but I feel like I know way too much to just come on here and start spilling my heart out. But this set looks flipping amazing. I was concerned because I know that there's been some talk of simplifying the game and simplifying the sets, going back down to 129 card sets like Revelation of John, Fall of Man was. And that immediately makes me think that we're going to lose some of the creativity within the set. But that's not necessarily true. And that's just me, projecting, because the set's getting cut down. I feel like we're just getting less. That doesn't mean that the cards that we're getting are not going to be, amazing. But I got to see Chris play a couple of games with basically a 65 to 70% playtest deck, and the rest of those were established cards in the card pool already that we're aware of. But there was a ton of new cards in that thing, and I was on cloud nine the entire time, dude. Like, you can probably tell it in my voice. I am super stoked for this new set. Like, if it was here right now, I would buy 10 boxes. I'm telling you, like, this new set looks unbelievable. I am super hyped. It really does seem like the Elders card designers was just like, what can we do to really make Hendricks flip out and just get him to go insane? And then they put all of that into the set. And I'm just like, guys, I cannot, I will not share things. I feel like I have a little bit of a fine line that I have to walk, because I definitely like bringing you guys information and sharing that. And I am pretty good at getting information that isn't necessarily available to everyone, just because, it's more of a consequence of opportunity as well, because Chris is there and you can kind of poke him and get him to talk a little bit sometimes. But I also want to respect the elders and know that they have information that they have that is not ready for public release yet, and I don't want to overstep that. So while I'm excited about that, and I'm trying to pass on the fact that I'm excited, I'm not excited to the point where I'm going to tell you everything that I know, because those cards may change. There's so much that can happen between now and that set being released at National. So I don't want to give anybody any type of information that has not been, authorized for release to the public community for the game. So understand the fine line that I'm walking. I'm a big guy. Okay. I'm trying to walk on this line and keep my balance. So I'm trying not to fall off either way, but I definitely want to pass on the fact that I am super excited, and you guys should be excited as well. Now, with that, there was one card that was spoiled that I believe is safe to go over. I believe Emmanuel actually went back. He did my job for the community this time, and he went back and found the card and shared it. This was shared on live stream at one point. So let me pull it up real quick and we'll go over it together. All right. This card is going to be Forgiveness of Joseph. I believe the numbers on it are 1 and 4, but I'm not 100% sure. It is a mono brigade blue enhancement. Blue enhancement, guys, okay? Blue. That means that Tyler and everyone else involved in this set knew that there was going to be some blue, and they did not tell me. And you know how much I have an affinity for blue, so come on, guys. Come on, you could have shared a little bit, okay? But this is Forgiveness of Joseph. And the ability, it looks like it says, negate an evil card, period. So negate an evil card, it'd say negate. But then it says opponent must underdeck 1, and then in parentheses are 3, if at least 2 evil brigades are in battle, close parentheses, evil cards from hand. So you negate an evil card, now they have to underdeck 1 evil card or 3. I believe that's a 3. It's kind of blurry on here, so I'm working off of the same image that you guys have. It might be 2, but underdeck more than 1 if at least 2 evil brigades are in battle. So that is a spoiler that has been shared on the live stream. So I think it's safe to go over that one. That does not mean that one still will not change. But that one, since it was shared to the community kind of publicly outside of me choosing to do so, I feel like I'm safe to go over that one with you guys. But yeah, just know that when it comes to Israel's rebellion, you guys need to be stoked for this thing, because it's going to be awesome. Now, before we get to our recorded conversations here, I would like to go over some recent content that's come out that I haven't gotten to go over with the way that I've structured the podcast the last few weeks that we've done. Josiah, then taking that week off because of my voice, and then doing the 5.5-hour podcast that wrecked the rest of my voice. And I'm still trying to recover from all of that, but we really haven't done a recent news section. So I would like to go ahead and just give shout outs to some content creators for the game, because I think that the place where the game is right now, it being so good for new players to come in or returning players, a lot of that set up because of the community and creating content for the game that can be an engagement point for players to come in, even without the cards in hand. Because I'll tell you, 90% of the time I'm thinking about redemption, it's not with cards. Even though the game is a card game, I'm thinking about it mentally, or thinking about content with the game. I'm watching other people play. I don't have the cards, but I have videos of them playing. And I think that the community creating all of this content is just great for the game and the future of the game. So I definitely like to include that on the podcast when I get the chance. So I guess we'll start with Mr. Classic Jayden Alstad. We're going to have to start using that to, talk about Jayden Alstad. So, Mr. Classic Alstad himself, he has content from Mr. Classic, obviously. He's got the live stream that we did with commentary. He's got that. He's also got some Type 1 gameplay from the following day. And I believe he has all but the last round, because he was breaking down as they were finishing up. But he has that. You can go and check that out. And also, in addition to that, he's got some recent classic gameplay on his channel from the past couple of weeks, and you can check those out. I don't know how much people are going to want to see it, but he did put out a pretty comprehensive list of cards that you should know before Mr. Classic weekend. Obviously, we're past that now, so it might be something that you just kind of save for next year beforehand. Now, this was a resource that was probably made directly for me to help me out with the commentary, but I didn't get a chance to watch it, so sorry, bro. Over on Tyler Talks, Tyler's last video was good gospel stuff, and this is kind of a conglomerate of just good offensive pieces. It's got the Bethany trio mixed with Nativity, and has Matthew Speed built in, has Herod's on defense, and that's a a pretty good mix of just good value that's found in GOC to build an offense with. So you guys can go and check that out. And obviously, he's going to give you a lot of the combos and plays in that. That's the way Tyler does these things. Shows you the video or the picture of the deck list and then starts talking about the individual plays in depth pretty well. So you can get a feel of that by watching that. If you go a couple of weeks past that, there is a video on Type 2. I believe he titled it Type 2 is a Thing. And that video is focusing on Type 2 as the format, as the subject format for that video. And I think it's the first time he's actually focused primarily on Type 2. And he is known as a Type 2 player. So that's where he's made his name, Mr. Hiatus. Wanted to be Mr. Classic, but he's still Mr. Hiatus. But you can go check that out if you're interested in Type 2. Kind of a newcomer to the content space is Mr. Ager the Wise. I had the pleasure of playing him in the opening round of the Zoom Discord tournament to where he kindly kicked my butt. But he has Lackey Grand Prix Classic Round 3 gameplay between him and Flooded Red, which is Jay Chambers. And this is one that if you want to go back and watch, it's just insane the opening hand that Jay gets. He gets Jehu and Simeon opening hand with placing everything down and then hitting a mayhem and then just card advantage, insane. So I didn't watch much past him hitting that mayhem because it was just I watched the first few minutes of it and then got sidetracked. But, I mean, it seems like it's setting up for Jay to run away with that one, but you can definitely go and check that out if you're interested in some more of that classic gameplay. Now, our friend Rob M from Rob M Studios on YouTube, he has been dabbling into the Animo content. So there's several videos recently of Animo, and that's kind of a Christian-based card game, a faith-based card game that is geared more toward younger players. And he's going through that, opening packs and talking about the gameplay and stuff of that game. So if you're interested in that, if you have younger kids or whatnot and you're interested in that, he's got that kind of content, and maybe that appeals to some of you out there that are maybe in the market for adding another collectible card game to your arsenal of games that you like to play. Me personally, I just can't afford to get into anything else since I spend so much money on Redemption, but hey, maybe somebody else out there is interested in that. Now, I do have one other kind of, I don't have any information on it, but I will tell you that I am aware of a new YouTube channel that is going to be coming to market soon for Redemption. So we're adding another YouTube channel, another content creator, and this is one you're going to want to check out. So just in the future, in the next couple of weeks, there will be a new YouTube channel. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit you with that. Also, there may be a new podcast as well. There's been talk of a podcast focusing on more deck building and archetypes and things of that nature. And so that might be coming in the works as well. So I want to shout that out and get you kind of pumped for future content that might be coming to market for us here. And with that, I think we're good to roll over and get into our pre-recorded conversations. I guess one thing I do need to clarify is that some of the streams that happened for Mr. Classic that did not have commentary, I believe those are on John Earley's Twitch stream. So maybe he will port those over to YouTube onto his YouTube channel, because I know they disappear after a while on Twitch, but those are available currently on Twitch if you want to go and check those out. I think I just kind of made the assumption that they were all available on Jayden's channel, so just want to clarify that. And with that, I think we are good to get into the conversation here with Marc, and then we'll talk to Mr. Classic himself. Thanks for listening. All right, guys, here we are with Mr. Marc Vellake. You recall him as the number 8 seed, the wild card, the community play-in, winning the scroll around the block. Turns out that's not all this cat won. So, Marc, how does it feel to obviously you didn't go and get the big prize, but you still went and, there was a reckoning as you beat John Earley in the first round. How did that feel?
It was pretty incredible. I think I said on the first time that you had me on that the goal, or what would it mean to me if I took home the belt, and a lot of that had to do with taking that next step into becoming a more competitive player, getting a little bit more that clout, that street cred. So even if the belt not go home with me, I think I still accomplished what I set out to do. It was an incredible match, a great tournament.
Yeah, there was several plays in there to where as me and Josh were watching that, and we had some sound issues I was trying to fix. So it was mostly Josh on the commentary there early on, but it was just like little thing in your favor after every little thing in your favor, getting down the early guardian, getting to play your falling away before a guardian came out against you, just all kinds of early things that were breaking your way. And it was like it could happen, but obviously John being the caliber player that he is, we didn't want to overstate it early on, but man, you could just tell that things were kind of breaking your way. Did you feel that in that match as the things were unfolding?
100%. I mean, that's kind of what I alluded to when we were talking about my deck in preparation for the tournament. And I mentioned it was kind of built to be a little bit more high risk, high reward. And of course, including a guardian in your deck is going to be risky. It's going to be a dead card half the time, or it's going to put you one lost soul ahead of your opponent half the time. And of course, you're risking a dominant slot to take that gamble. So yeah, it's definitely paid off for me. I saw that Guardian come up, I think, on my second or first draw of the game, and felt an overwhelming sense of relief that I got that. I don't think he was even playing Guardian in his deck, but as soon as I got my Falling Away up, I did not risk the opportunity of him also playing a Guardian. So those were two big advantages, I think, early on in the game.
Yeah. If we're going to say the call of the game, that would definitely be the play where you played Great Morning into, I believe it was Death of Unrighteous,
Oh
to
yeah,
clear the souls off your board. And if I had to say, I think that's probably the best play that we saw the entire tournament, at least on the feed that we was watching and doing commentary on. I got pretty excited. I was like, man, Mark is in the streets. And it was just like this, like, that was the moment, like, it was real. Like, the wild card's about to win this thing. How did that feel pulling that play off? And those were some cards that you included in your deck that were kind of, not what you would expect to see players playing at this tournament, even it being a classic scrolls only tournament. You had Self right there. I believe there was Great Morning, and then you played into the Death of Unrighteous. So just tell us about including those in your deck, and then how did it feel having that big payoff, getting to play those in a chain and pulling them off?
oh yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm really excited to go back and listen to your commentary. I've been trying to catch up on some things ever since I got home, but I am very much eager to hear what you guys were saying because I know there's a lot of thoughts going on in my head during the game, and I think it'd be really interesting for me to go back and rewatch the game, knowing what I was thinking, and then hearing what you all thought was going on. I guarantee you that your thoughts are probably way more insightful than mine were at some of those moments. But regarding those cards and that play in particular, I was going back to my deck. This was actually a very similar deck to what I ran at Scroll Around the Block. It was Judges with a hybrid Assyrian Magician defense. The offense remained pretty much the same. I slimmed it down a hair. But for the defense, when I was reworking it for Mr. Classic, I made sure I had a little bit more brown. There's not very much multi brigade stuff in Classic. Like nowadays, you can make decks really splashy and consistent, and you can play one enhancement across half of your characters if you build it right. Really difficult to do that in Scrolls without giving up some of your power. So obviously, everybody's running Haman's plot, Uzza, and Malachite Slave is pretty common. So you got a little bit of brown you can splash into pretty much anything. With the magicians, I was also doing King Manasseh, so that's another brown character. And Self was in there purely to give me one extra card to give me a little bit of flexibility. That's one more character I could play Haman's plot on. And Self is probably pretty underrated. I don't know if I've ever seen him get used very competitively. Probably because nobody really knows how he works. I don't know if you noticed, but I kept asking questions about Self on Discord, and even like the night before the tournament, I sent Marcus a message, a private message, like, "Look, how does this card work in this interaction here? The Orchid does not make a lot of sense. The erratas and the play as." So we cleared some things up, and I think he's definitely worth an include. Reason being, you can play any enhancement on him, so that's a huge bonus, and that's the primary reason he was in the deck. But secondly, and almost as importantly, you get to choose the numbers. If you're fighting a fight by number character, you can go big if you need to go big. And what I did in that case was choose one of his smaller heroes so I could guarantee myself the initiative. That was the most likely way I knew I was going to play him. So that was kind of the reasoning behind Self. And of course, once I had 4 small evil characters, they're all low numbered dudes, I figured, could I get myself into a different brigade other than Pale Green to give them a little bit of support? Could I get another really strong brown evil enhancement besides Heyman's Plot? And I decided on Great Morning because that card may not get you a block that turn, but if you can play it, even if I just play it and then let my guy die, that's basically a guaranteed block for the following turn. And it's really hard to get yourself those guaranteed blocks. So I think Akin Sin is what I took out. And Akin Sin is a phenomenal pale green evil enhancement, interrupt the battle, and then boom, wipes out the battlefield. But of course, it puts your opponent in special initiative every time, and they can negate it. And people typically have negates. So I figured more often than not, it's probably a better play to run Great Morning and more or less guarantee myself that stall of a turn. The whole defense is meant to stall, just long enough for me to get my offense going and to hopefully get to 5 before my opponent. So that was the strategy, and it was just really lucky. I also had Death of Unrighteous, so I could go Great Morning, drop that, and then Death of Unrighteous, so they didn't have a chance to get initiative and play it. So I was able to get to block that turn and the next turn, which obviously was a huge furthering that momentum that was kind of already building in that game.
Yeah, those are definitely some really cool inclusions to get to play that strong brown enhancement, followed up by a strong pale green, and that goes to the versatility you were talking about there, Self allowing you to play any enhancement, and then also choose the number. So definitely great includes, and it's kind of awesome that they came together there in that moment for that play. And I guess let me fast forward because we do know that you then ran into Mr. Jayden, who went on to win Mr. Classic. So at least you got put out by the champ, right? So you can take a little bit of solace in that. But we didn't get to see that game on stream when we were doing commentary, so it is available on YouTube at this point. I have not gone back and watched it, but how did your deck fare in that game, and what was kind of the difference in your output in that game and the game with John? Did some of those early things just not go your favor?
Yeah, that was part of it. I remember Jayden dropped a falling away on me immediately, so I didn't even get to see my Guardian. So that obviously that's the risk of running Guardian. And then, oh my goodness, I definitely broke tournament etiquette. Shame on me, but I was thoroughly surprised because on the very first rescue, I drew no lost souls. So I'm thinking, good, Jayden's going first, but it doesn't matter because I have no lost souls, and that gives me a little bit of hope. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Turn 1, he drops a harvest time. Who in their
Oh
right
my
mind
goodness.
runs a harvest time? I'm like, what did you take out to run harvest time? And of course, everybody else in the room heard that. He's like, man, don't tell everybody I'm running harvest time. I'm like, sorry. But
Oh man.
yeah, that definitely he put me on tilt right from the get go. I mean, with that harvest time that kind of came out of nowhere and then came in for the soul, and then my deck tends to love gaining the initiative. I'm sure you noticed in my game against John, I tended to come out with a lower numbered judges. Jer is my best friend, even Deborah 4/4, and then my evil characters. You get Self to get really low numbers, and then your conjurers and a bunch of these low numbered dudes. And that I didn't really seem to get initiative nearly as well against Jayden. He built his deck in such a way to really capitalize on the CBN stuff, CBN enhancements, CBN characters, and since he was able to get initiative, as soon as he was able to play something, that was pretty much it. So that was a very, very strong deck, very difficult to play against, especially considering the fact that I couldn't really get the initiative in there. And he played extremely well, obviously, built a strong deck as well. So I'm not surprised in the result. And like you said, if I was going to lose, at least I lost to the guy who went on to basically steamroll everybody. I think he won like 5-1, 5-2 the entire day.
Yeah, he definitely he has been on quite a winning streak here lately, and I thought Mr. Classic with the scrolls would kind of maybe affect that a little bit and make him, at least bring him down to other people's level. But nah, Jayden's just got it in spades right now. Whatever he's got going on, that man is cooking. So, I mean,
until next year, grudge match, it's coming. I gotta redeem myself in scrolls. Now I know what he's got going. I gotta get ready for him.
that's fair. And you can slide in that burial when he does play that harvest time. But yeah, like I would think that Mr. Classic next year is going to have a lot of familiar faces, and I don't know how they end up deciding how to pick the participants, because now that it's been a thing, maybe some other people want to get involved. Maybe they want to spread it out a little bit, and I would assume that for logistical reasons, keeping it at 8 makes the most sense. But what would you say right now if I put you on the spot and said, here, sell it that Mr. Marc Vellake deserves to be in that field of 8 next year? How would you sell that?
Let's be honest here. I came in as the underdog, the 8th seed, the one that everybody knew with all reason was going to get stomped in the first round, and somehow pulled out an upset win against the number 1 seed, arguably one of the greatest players in the history of the game. So I think I've proved I can certainly hang with the folks at Mr. Classic. So I didn't go down, didn't roll over, and had a very strong game. And I'm very likely going to have to earn my spot again next year. I've heard rumors that Scroll Around the Block might be an annual thing to kind of sneak in and grab one of those seats at the table. So, if I can manage to beat the great John Earley, I'm sure I can go back and win it, Scroll Around the Block again. So I'm going to be there one way or another, whether I'm an invite or whether I got to fight my way to the table again. It's going to happen.
All right, there you go. Supreme confidence, and that's what we in the community loved about you and your story there, building up to it. Because I think a lot of people expected you to show up and at least be in the game, which is not what you would expect from the onset of saying, hey, 8 seed versus 1 seed. But then you took that a step further when you sat there at the table and there was no backing down. You were just pushing. You were aggressive. You were that guy. So definitely, maybe we'll see you in the field next year and maybe you can make a little bit more noise. But definitely enjoyed having you participate this year and getting to watch your games, our game. And we've got the other game that I need to go and check out with you and Jayden, see how that one went. But all of you guys out there that have not had a chance to see it, there is game 1 against John Earley with commentary available on YouTube. And then his second game is against Jayden, and it is on live stream on Jayden's channel as well. Just does not have commentary. Or actually, that might be on John Earley's Twitch stream. So watch it before it disappears type of thing. So thanks for joining here, Marc. And you've been on the podcast now 2 weeks in a row. How does that feel? You're getting podcast famous.
Absolutely. This is going to be the start of a very bright redemption career, I think. One thing I wanted to say really quick too. as much as I try to project that sense of confidence and how great of a game it was, and obviously things tilted in my favor with how the cards came up. But I do want to give some public gratitude toward John, because it was a very well played game on his end, and I don't just mean the technical gameplay of the cards. He was a fantastic opponent to play against. I think this is something probably unique to the redemption community. He wasn't a jerk, right? And even though I got my guardian down, and that's typically the point at which the pit would form in your stomach, and you're starting to get maybe even a little annoyed at how things are going in the game. He was exceedingly gracious. I didn't fully understand how some of the cards worked. I mean, these are classic cards and nobody's really used them in a long time, and I was not a very strong competitive player when they were the only cards around. So he was extremely gracious and kind of explaining things to me, and um, definitely a very pleasant game. And it was a pleasure to play somebody against that caliber of strength with the cards, but also really good character as well. It was the best game I might have ever played, to be honest.
Yeah. John's definitely one of those guys, and it can get kind of buried because he's got a little bit of that arrogant touch to him at times. Leading up to this, talking about wrestling, we mentioned that he had a bit of that Miz in him. I'm awesome and it's all about me type of thing. But underneath all of that, John's a really good dude. So that doesn't surprise me there. But definitely glad that that's on the record for people to know. That's just the type of person that John is once you get to know him or you have an experience like that playing against him. I guess we'll get ready to drop off here with Mark, and thank you for coming on. And maybe we'll have my people call your people and do some kind of compensation for all this podcast work you've been putting in for me.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Maybe we'll do something for New York States that's coming up, and that's going to be a fairly huge event. We might have maybe even close to half the people in that. So it's going to be a pretty awesome event. So we're definitely have to get you some reports after that happens.
Nice. That sounds awesome. I did hear you guys talking potentially 35 to 40 people at that thing. So that's definitely good news for the state of redemption in that area.
Oh, dude, yeah, New York is coming back strong. My play group, we're hitting 17 people just for our regular meetings, and not even everybody shows up every meeting. So I think state tournament, we alone are going to have 20 people there. Rochester is probably going to bring anywhere from another 5 to 15 people, and we might get some folks out from Northeast. This is getting to be a big hub for redemption again.
Nice. That's awesome. Maybe one day you guys can force me to travel to New York for nationals.
I'm telling you, man, Nationals 2025, New York.
All right. All right. Thanks, Mark, for coming on, and we'll catch you next time.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
All right, guys. Here we are, Mr. Classic. How's that feel, Jayden? To be Mr. Classic, you might as well be Mr. Redemption at this point, because if there's anything competitive, you're gonna win that thing.
Yeah, it feels good. I'm a little bit disappointed you didn't, go real big with the Mr. Classic there, but
Hey, man, my voice is still on the comeback trail.
all right, that's all right. Yeah, no, it feels good. It's I've gotten to show a few people the belt so far, and they, react accordingly. Where it's just like, wow, that's a lot, but that's kind of funny and it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they ate it up about as well as the waiter at the restaurant that night. He's like, "Let me see that thing." Okay, whatever that is.
He looked at that, he looked at me, he looked at that, and then Chris was like, "It's a card game." He's like, "Oh, okay."
That makes more sense for your physique.
I don't know. I don't know how I didn't see my wrestling build, but
Well, you got to keep in mind that he's a Twitch gamer himself though, because he threw that pitch there
right.
at the end. He's like, "Check me out on Twitch, guys."
I don't think I heard that.
Oh yeah,
But,
Tyler took his screen name down or whatever, his Twitch stream name.
Oh,
So
what does he
maybe
stream?
mostly I think he said Call of Duty currently,
Oh, okay.
but maybe we can get that information from Tyler, and then
Yeah.
in a year we can check back, go to the same
Yeah.
restaurant after you get it for the second time. Because at this point, I just assume you're going to keep the belt for like the eternity of this cycle.
We can just go there during nationals.
Oh, we could do that too.
Yeah.
It was actually really good food.
It was pretty good.
Not like the first restaurant that Brian drugged me to. He's like, this used to be really good, and it was terrible, Brian. It was terrible. It was trash. I wasted $70. So, I guess when you look at Mr. Classic as a whole, and you consider the whole event and the fact that it was almost like a mini nationals. Obviously, there wasn't as many people there as we hoped to see at nationals, but it kind of still had that feel. How would you categorize, like how would you tell people that weren't there about the experience of what Mr. Classic was, at least this first one?
I mean, I guess I would just describe kind of the flow of how things went. I mean, like we got there, Friday morning. We started a little bit late because of Jay. We'll just blame Jay. But also just people, getting in, getting things set up. I was working on getting all the streaming, my streaming setup going, and then once we did finally get playing it, and then in future years, hopefully it'll be more organized so that when we do have more players, then we're kind of ready for that and starting on time so we can get everything in. But like just doing the booster draft and type 2 on Friday was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we had stuff that was like sandwiched around the kind of main event, or kind of the what the weekend was built around, which was the Mr. Classic Invitational portion. But then I think it was cool for the players who were there for the whole weekend. They got to do something on Friday. Then like Friday evening, they just got to kind of hang out and watch the games. I'm sure people were maybe playing games themselves up there while they were watching, and we had the whole like streaming room set up. And the for people who weren't there, it was being streamed, and then live commentary up on the projector in kind of the hangout room upstairs. And so I didn't actually get to go up there during the gameplay, of course, because I was playing.
That's because you didn't lose.
Yeah. So I had to stay downstairs the whole time. But I'm sure that the atmosphere up there was just kind of fun, hanging out, playing and watching the game. And I think that's I think that in future iterations or years, whatever, we'll just make that only better, where maybe we'll have both games streaming at the same time on different screens, and maybe live commentary for both. Maybe we'll have commentators who are familiar with the cards.
Maybe so.
Oh, wait.
I didn't watch your video to get me prepared. I'm sorry.
Didn't do your homework. Oh man, come on.
Yeah. Josh was fantastic though. Josh,
yeah,
he knew the cards. He was very well spoken about the strategy involved. And over here, I'm in my head at one point, I'm thinking like, man, we haven't seen Nazareth at all. Like I would think that as a hard counter, especially if you think people are going to be going auto to their Gideon to get that difficult to stop rescue, like that would be one of the things. And I'm thinking in my head, I was like, do you find it odd, Josh, that we haven't seen Nazareth? But instead of saying Nazareth out of nowhere, it was like, we haven't seen more Samuel. I was like, what? And I don't know why I was thinking Samuel at the time. Maybe it was because like recently, like we had talked about Samuel's edict on a play or something, and it just came out, and he's like, well, that's because it's banned. And I was like, there's no like backtracking and be like, that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say was Nazareth. It was just like
that makes sense. I do remember I was watching them back, and I do remember you saying that and Josh responding. But yeah, I'm glad you took this opportunity to clarify, kind of
like
explain yourself a little bit.
We were having issues where when Josh would talk, like he would be talking and like mid sentence it would taper off, and like it's something with the audio processing on the board. So like the whole time I was trying to figure out what was causing that issue. and try to fix it. And I made it better, but I never really got rid of the issue at all, like completely. So the whole time that I'm like doing any kind of commentary with him, I'm also sidetracked because I'm, in the settings for the board.
Sure.
And I don't know how that happened, but man, that was the one flaw on the whole evening.
Well, that, and apparently when you were placing odds against Justin in the first 2 rounds. But,
Oh yeah, well, it's not my fault. He had those black sleeves that looks like, hey, I just threw a deck together, and everybody else had these nice custom sleeves. So I really went by the sleeves the first time. That's not really picking against him.
I suppose, but I guess maybe on the other hand, it could show everyone else was focused on, the aesthetics, spending time making sure they had the right custom sleeves and whatever, when, Justin was focused on the deck, just the contents.
Yeah. Now, I have heard that Justin has a very competitive streak to him once you get it going. So if, me picking against him was able to unlock a little bit of that, I'm okay with that. I'll do it for the community. I'll be the guy that he needs to beat up on for the community to get that competitive edge from Justin.
There you go. Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody does have to do it. And yes, Justin, I checked on Jeremy, and his back is fully healed up from carrying me. It's fine.
So he's ready to do it again this year.
I hope so. Either that, or I'm going to need somebody else to do it.
Fair enough. Well, maybe Justin will do it, because I'm contemplating playing whichever limited category happens on the same day as teams. So.
Well, see, that's where Justin might pull the ultimate troll game, is build this up and be like, all right, we're going to win teams. Sit down, and then he just betrays me and doesn't even try. He's like, got my revenge, punk.
Just plays like an angry mob deck that's like, 12 angry mobs.
Yeah, something like that.
Discard all of yours. Be like, put all of your characters down so I can ban to them, and then blocks with 8 angry mobs to discard your whole territory.
Or maybe he builds a deck that's as free-flowing as your playmat deck. It's just a bunch of random things thrown together. Brigades don't match.
That'd be good.
That would be good for his revenge tour, but not for me.
The thing is that Justin, that wouldn't necessarily be considered a win for him. He's competitive in that he wants to win the game, not just play a practical joke on you.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because you were just talking about how he doesn't focus on the sleeves and things. It's just about the result for him. So that's fair.
Yeah. So I think maybe that would be for a smaller tournament, but at nationals, I think he'd be willing to carry you.
Well, depending on how this goes with Jeremy early on, I might be looking for somebody to carry me. I'll bring a red flyer wagon, okay? I'll bring a wagon so it'll be easier. Just pull me. So I guess you got to play Brian round 1. And this was the matchup that I kind of talked about, that I could see going either way. Now, in private conversations, and I even said this beforehand to Brian at the church, I was like, some people, and when I said some people, I was talking about myself 100%. I was like, some people think that Jayden's just going to win it because that's what Jayden's been doing lately. And a lot of you guys are coming back to the game in a competitive way or whatnot. Like John didn't play at Nationals last year. I don't know how much he actually played during the tournament season. You had Brian that's returning, and he played at Nationals, but had just returned shortly before Nationals to the game. You've got Justin that hasn't been playing actively very much before Nationals. Another similar story. So a lot of people that were just still knocking off rust, if you will.
Sure.
And then you that's been just winning everything. So I was like, Brian, some people would say that it's going to be hard for you guys just to knock off the guys who've been winning everything. And he was like, well, yeah, but he's been winning not in scrolls only. right? Well, how does it feel now, Brian? He's one in scrolls only. So how did that matchup go? And was there some trash talking at the table? When we were doing the commentary, we ended up we didn't get your guys' game because we had the 1-8 matchup, and then we got the 2-7. But we rolled over in time to see that you went up 3-2. He dropped his 2 free ones, but then you turned around and immediately dropped your 2 free ones, and we didn't have the context of what you guys were saying back and forth because we didn't have the audio feed from the players in our headset. So we don't have any of that. But how did that game flow? And did Brian bring his A game on the trash talking?
Oh, let's see. I'm trying to remember if we did any trash talking at the beginning. I don't think we did too much. I mean, I think both of us were like, we wanted to have a good time, but we both clearly were like wanting to win, like, a little bit of kind of the nerve sort of thing. I mean, especially I think being in the first game, you kind of just like all the hype and the build up. Like I didn't feel like I was particularly nervous, but it's just like, then you get to the moment where you're actually playing and like, hands are shaking a little bit. And I think both of us were kind of feeling that. But then the game, it started out and it was, it turned out to be, I think, score wise and just even feeling wise. Like I've watched all the games that I wasn't participating in. Like I went through and watched all of Justin's games and the game against John and Mark. I guess I haven't watched the game with Tyler and Ron. But from what I heard, it wasn't, a super close game. And so, I mean, the game that I played with Brian, both score-wise and just feeling-wise, I think was the closest game across, the board. That was played on Friday night there. And I would encourage people to go and watch that one specifically if you haven't already. It's on John's Twitch, Red Dragon Thorn. And also, I'm going to have him send me the recording for it. I might do some, like overlay some commentary and post it on my channel as well at some point here. But I think, so Brian was the only player not playing judges. I think, Ron didn't really have a judge's focus, but he had, a couple in there. And, of course, he was playing Throne. We were both playing Babylonians, so that was kind of an interesting... it was interesting to see kind of where the differences were between our defenses. Brian was saying he did a lot of test games against Josiah playing judges, and he won, I think, every game he said that where Josiah played judges. So he was feeling pretty confident when I started laying down judges. And I think that the gameplay, the game really could have gone either way. I rescued the third, my third lost soul. I played, and that was his last lost soul. Like, it was actually, he kind of played the slower game because he wasn't drawing lost souls. So he was, not drawing as much with his offense and just kind of trying to, hold me off because he was still, using or like finding enough of his offense to, be getting through here and there. And I had one, or like kind of just one super important kind of sequence of events, I guess, that just played out really well for me. I think I was giving him Lost Soul number 1, and I almost gave him Revealer. Instead, I gave him Fight by the Numbers Lost Soul because he didn't have a Lost Soul out. So I was like, okay, in case I draw my Hopper. So I go to my turn, I draw my 3, no Hopper. I make a battle challenge with Angel Under the Oak, draw 2, there's Hopper. So that goes over, gets a Lost Soul for me to go after. I exchange for Jer and draw 2, and in those 2 is Falling Away. And so I don't think he had a block for Jer, so I picked up a Lost Soul there. And then in my discard phase, played the Falling Away to get my Fight by the Numbers back. And then when I passed the turn, he drew 3 and drew Hopper.
That's a crazy turn on the draw 2 into the Hopper and then the falling away.
Yep.
So
that was very
luck
important.
seemed to favor you.
Yeah. At least in that sequence, yeah, that was like exactly what I needed in order to kind of keep the pressure on. And then right at the end of the game, I don't know if, I mean, people already know that I won, I guess, and you already kind of described it. Like Brian played his 2, and I played mine immediately after. So what had happened there is I rescued my 3rd lost soul, which was the only lost soul that he had in his territory. So then I played Harvest Time to get another lost soul out so that he only had to draw 1 more instead of 2.
That stinking Harvest Time, dude.
I know, man.
Mark mentioned that when I talked to him. So Harvest Time was super clutch for you in 2 different games.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't need it against Justin, although I had it against Justin, and he did have DOU in his deck. I don't think he had it in his hand at any point, but I was ready for him to, if he used that. And he was actually, with Justin, the Harvest Time thing, like he knew that I had it. He was looking at my hand with Urman Thummim. So he activated Hezekiah's Signet Ring, and the reason that he didn't attack on his last turn, I remember you guys commentating on it, and you were like, kind of unsure, like, oh, like he just passed the turn without even making an attempt. Well, he knew that I had Forest Fire in my hand, and so
the Josiah special.
Exactly. So if he attacked and I had initiative to play that, I could take out his Signet Ring, and then my Harvest Time is good. And he knew that one of his few blocks left that would have been like the most impactful, like that he could try to find, would be a DOU. So he had a Malachite Slave in his hand, he had Egyptian Magicians in his hand, so he could have dug a little bit with either like Egyptian Magicians, trying to hit it off the top or bottom. That would be kind of lucky, but also Malachite Slave to go get Damsel to try to draw into it. And so he decided not to attack in order to kind of hold off my Harvest Time with his Hezekiah's Signet Ring. So then with Brian, I used the Harvest Time, get that Lost Soul out. I was looking through his deck. The top 2 cards of his deck were Son of God, New Jerusalem. They were sitting there right together. The next 2 cards were the Thorns Lost Soul and the Star 4 Lost Soul. So I was looking at that, and I was just glad that I'd had the Harvest Time there, because he would have drawn those 2 Lost Souls, but Son of God, New Jerusalem, neither of them can rescue the Star 4 Lost Soul, because it doesn't have the negate portion anymore in the classic cards. And so that would have set Brian up to potentially win that turn if he, because he would have gotten the big 2, and if he was able to rescue a Lost Soul. So I shuffled a little bit after I searched. I think he shuffled a little bit and even cut, and he drew, and he drew the same cards that he would have drawn. He drew Son of God, New Jerusalem, Thorns, and the Star 4. And so he put them down. I asked for dominant initiative. He was, he wanted to play his first because he had them, to make it closer, 5-4. And then I played mine to rescue the last 2 there. So yeah, it was a crazy close game, all throughout the game. Definitely some big decisions that had to be made that had implications later in the game. And I would definitely encourage people to go back and watch that one. Like if you don't watch any of the other games, I would watch that one.
So I did a good job picking out the game for people to focus on in the opening round.
Exactly.
I feel like I kept hyping that one up. 4 and 5, 4 and 5. That's going to, whoever wins that, I really thought could go on to win, because I didn't think Mark was necessarily going to win, but I thought he was going to push John, just because of how much work he had put in, because there is something to be said for knowing your deck well and the amount of work and preparation you put into it. And he was one of the few that I knew had their deck crafted and was actually playing it consistently in the build up to the Classic Invitational. So I knew he was going to know his deck well, and he showed it to me beforehand. I think when we were finishing up Booster, he was like, "Here, you want to take a look at my deck just so that you're, aware of what kind of to expect when you're doing commentary." I was like, "Sure." And I saw the Great Morning, I saw the Self in there. I was like, these cards seem like cards that you wouldn't expect to see in this tournament field. And they ended up mattering in that game, and it was just kind of cool to see the amount of work that he put into his deck. But as far as like just caliber of players matched up, definitely thought that you and Brian had the best opening match. And also kind of play styles is I feel like you're pretty versatile. You could play anything. You could come out with any type of deck and be okay with it. I guess Brian, for more you guys that have been around him a little bit more, I haven't known Brian as long as you guys, so I don't know about the whole Brian's a throne player and all of that. So I guess he went back to his comfort zone. But I had no idea what he would play leading up to it, unless he went back to just what people know of him. And it seems like he did that, but it was still a competitive game.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Brian went to what he was most comfortable with. And I think to a degree, I was definitely, I think I would have been comfortable with a few different decks, kind of like, the ones that I had built. But, ultimately kind of my bread and butter at that time in the game was a judge's deck. And so that was really, what I was most comfortable with as well. And it just so happened that that's what other people, or like, almost everyone else in the field felt was, either they were the most comfortable with or what they felt was the best offense. And I think that showed in our game of just like, we were easily able to make those. I mean, maybe not easily, but maybe more easily able to make those, more delicate or kind of, those decisions that other players who maybe aren't as familiar with those cards or those themes, it would be harder for them to make those decisions kind of in the moment.
You were able to navigate the landmine of decisions a little bit better.
Right.
So I will say that watching and doing the commentary, I'll give it up for Josh. Josh was the ace of commentary, and I was just kind of hanging on there. I think I had one really cool part to where I was like, Mark is in these streets. Like, I'm cool with that call. That was cool. But beyond that, like, Josh was definitely the star of the show. I just brought the equipment, so, give respect to Josh for knowing
Absolutely.
the cards and also, carrying me, maybe he was pulling my wagon that night. But I will say that I think that after watching you guys play, I was of the impression early on, and John told me that he didn't think it was necessarily the case, but I thought that this is something that could get stagnant really quickly. Since it's a limited card pool, like there's no new cards coming into this. It's not necessarily limited, but there's no new changes to the card pool. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you've got these scroll cards and this is what's available. But knowing the intricate decisions of like playing this card, Mark playing those couple of cards that are not expected. I mean, I could see where this, even without any, active ban list changes, getting crazy with that type of thing, to where it could still be really competitive, especially you start adding in new players with new tendencies, new, familiar cards or comfort zone cards that they're going to use, where you kind of keep this thing spicy for the foreseeable future. So definitely, I think that my mind started to change a little bit watching that, and I really did like the flow of the game. It seemed like it was like, all right, draw. Here we go. We're in the battle. This is my rescue. What you got, homeboy? And then it's like, all right, my turn's over. You draw. What you got, homeboy? Instead of the whole trigger of this, to where it's like you're 5 minutes into a turn and they haven't even gone into battle yet, of like modern redemption sometimes.
Yeah.
to where I feel like the pace was really fun to watch, and there was not a lot of dead space in the game. So that was kind of cool to see,
Yeah.
and I think that's more representative of that time period in the game.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think, for one, I'll point out that that's pretty much what I told you about Scrolls Only in the pre-tournament interview. Is like, this is it helped me kind of realize, the differences between the game, and I think that, even a player like you could enjoy it. So I'll just say I called that.
Even a player like me. Look, I'm gonna have to win something to get you guys off my back.
I'm just saying a player like you, as in you're newer to the game, like you're not as used to those old cards. Yeah.
Okay. And then I dislike those old cards.
But also, I mean, yeah, the game just kind of, flows a little differently. The decisions you're making aren't like, okay, which hero do I, need to search for, like which territory class enhancement do I play. It's more like, okay, I've got this one territory class enhancement, I'm going to play that. And then maybe the decision is like, okay, I've got Otto. Do I go for Jer? Do I go for Gideon? Do I need a little bit more speed, or do I need a little more punch? And of course, it's specific to the judges deck, and other decks might be even a little more like narrow in your options. Otto is obviously one of the stronger heroes in Scrolls Only, and gives you some decent options there. But like, Throne, it's kind of like, okay, I've got this hero that bans to that hero that draws some cards, like, just push it in. No offense to Brian, I guess. No, I'm not trying to say that Throne is like too easy to play, but it's like, they're just overall as a format, like it's a little bit easier to play, just kind of from a the cards don't do as much standpoint, and they're just kind of like fewer things to keep track of. But there are definitely still decisions that make a big difference of I guess kind of making those small-ish decisions of like, okay, do I need a little bit more speed with Jer, or do I need to hope they don't have anything, or like maybe they just have a small chump block or something, and I'm supposed to go to Moses. So it's kind of like making those kind of pacing decisions, and that I think kind of gives the interesting value, I guess, to the Scrolls Only as a format, rather than being interesting from there's all these crazy things going on like we have in current, or rotation redemption.
Yeah, and some of those decisions are kind of lost nowadays with the aggressive resource generation. People just kind of sell out for, okay, turn one, I'm going to Matthew no matter what, or I've got 5 ways to Matthew. That's my turn one rescue, even though your turn one rescue yields a soul like 15% of the time.
Yeah.
Because there's usually an answer for Matthew. Not to mention, on the flip side, a lot of times you let them generate a lot of resource based on you going to Matthew. So I guess some of those decisions are more unique to that style, because you're playing at a slower pace than, now and modern redemption, the way that you kind of are just selling out for resource generation.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, let me ask you, and I didn't mean for this to be a super long thing, but I'm sure people will enjoy hearing the ins and outs of some of the decisions that you made throughout your games and whatnot, being that you are now the first ever Mr. Classic. And, your words now carry a little bit more weight. Not only are you Jayden Alstad, guy that stepped out of his brother's shadow and won Type 1 this past year, you're Jayden Alstad, the first ever Mr. Classic. I mean, you're going to have to tell Rob that you need money for endorsing his game, because you're the first ever Mr. Classic. I mean, there's just a big future going ahead for you. But if we fast forward a year from now and we're getting ready for the next Mr. Classic, and you don't know who the challengers will be, but let's assume there's going to be another 8. You're going to be one of the 8 because you are the defending. You gotta take your belt. You gotta lay it on the line.
Yep.
What do you think right now, just from the outset? What do you think your confidence level is of being able to repeat and be the first ever 2-time Mr. Classic?
Oh man. So I mean, I don't know exactly what the plan is as far as format and who's all going to be invited and everything for next year. It sounds like they're getting some ideas together of like, okay, they're going to have this many qualifiers, this many play-ins, this many people who it's just kind of like their reputation kind of got them in. And so I mean, it's going to be a different field, and there are definitely some players who are more active in current redemption, who maybe even if they're not as familiar with the scrolls cards, depending on what the format ends up shaking out to be, they can still be competitive. I mean, like you mentioned how Josh was doing the commentary with you, and he was making
Doing the commentary for me.
Doing
yes.
Pointing out the strategies and like different things, like, okay, this is probably what this player is doing here, of like, okay, or this person is kind of behind on tempo, and Josh understands kind of those concepts that are that I guess transcend the card pool that you're working with.
Space-time continuum, and goes all the way back to the scrolls-only format.
Exactly. Yeah, he does the Doctor Strange thing, and I don't know.
But does he know how to read a bracket? Sorry.
That's a good question. That might set him apart from some of the field too.
At least from Jay.
But yeah, so I mean, like, player like him, player like Jeremy, those guys can go pretty far with their even their understanding of the game kind of as it is presently, even if they weren't playing directly with that, or when that format was a thing, back before 2012 or so.
So this is Jayden giving the political answer. Instead
okay, fine.
Of
I'm very confident they're all going down.
Okay, there we go. That's what we need. Mr. 2-time.
You heard it here first.
Dude, could you imagine it? Fast forward a year. I'm only going to ever refer to you at that point as Mr. 2-time. Mr. 2-time.
But what about when I win it for the 3rd time in a row?
Then you'll be Mr. 3-time.
Okay.
All the way up until 16 time.
Yes, there will be in the year 2039.
Yes.
The 16th annual Mr. Classic.
Has the belt. The belt. And has never relinquished the belt. Someone said, I heard that it was going to have a permanent residence at the Joneses residence. But I guess it does have a permanent residence, maybe, but just not with the Joneses. So instead of keeping up with the Joneses, we got to keep up with the Alstads.
There we go.
But have you and Justin played any, like, what if you played again matches with your 2 decks?
We haven't played any more games. We did talk about our match some more. We actually talked about doing some, not necessarily like commentary, but just kind of like a thought process video of like going through our game again and kind of like, okay, here's what I was thinking here, and here are some of the considerations I made. It's we talked about some theoreticals with the last round. Like, if I had not drawn the fight by the numbers soul on that last turn, and Justin had used Son of God on my exchanger, then he would have still had his Punisher soul active, and he probably is able to get a block that turn, because he had ways to get around pretty much everything other than the Aaron Moses band. But he didn't know that I had Moses in hand, and so there were just kind of a number of ways that it could have played out differently. For sure, that first battle where I was able to get so much value with that, the side battle, and the Nebi taking out two of his evil characters and his charms. Thinking about how that could have played out differently if he had just used charms, instead of risking the block.
Yeah, that first turn, I remember the side battle. I was so excited because that was the first time in Mr. Classic in the field, in our streams, that we had seen Nebuchadnezzar, and I was all excited for him to get one last ride. So to see him in the side battle there at the beginning, that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
But I guess you guys really have almost an unfair advantage now that you are just, you live together now, so you get to play all the time if you want, as much as you want. You're two of the best players, and you just finished first and second in the Mr. Classic Invitational. So the odds are that you guys are going to be right back in that limelight when Mr. Classic rolls around next year. And we're expecting that you guys are going to be, in the mix for nationals as well. Just iron sharpening iron. You guys get to just play whenever you want and have high quality, at least matchups with Deep Thought, and some people don't have that. And I mean, maybe do you think that leads to a lot of your success, is just having, that group of players around, your brothers and whatnot, and being able to have used them all this time to, finally break through, and now you're the top dog?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely helps. I don't think I would be anywhere near the competitive player that I am today if it weren't for getting whooped on by my brothers when I was growing up. In Redemption, not physically, well, sometimes physically, but
Justin does look like he could be mean.
See, the thing is that actually, like, let's see, Justin would have been going to college when I was 5. So I was like just learning, starting to learn to read, which is, about when I was, that's pretty much when I started playing Redemption. And so, I mean, like, we'd still, we'd see each other at tournaments and whatnot, and, he'd move back home at some point in there. And then my other brothers, we would play, and really my next door neighbor growing up, we would play a lot. Actually, I almost, when I talked about that purple teal deck that I was thinking about playing in the pre-tournament podcast, and I kind of would have built that as like an homage, I guess, to my next door neighbor growing up, because that was probably the best deck that he built before he stopped playing, kind of when we went off to high school, or when we were going to high school and were busier and whatnot. He played a purple teal deck, I think with an Assyrian defense, if I remember correctly, that was pretty strong at that time, like just right after Priest came out, and it was a fun deck to play. And so, yeah, all that to say, like, I mean, just that experience of being able to play against some of the best players kind of at almost any time. They were older and busy, but we still lived in the same house for a number of years, and then also having my neighbor next door, and us kind of getting to learn and grow in the game together. And then, even now to today when, Justin and I live together, I mean, we really don't play Redemption all that often with each other. I mean, like most of the Redemption that I play these days is with people online. But, we talk about it still. And, I think that pattern has kind of shown with some of the other top players in the game. You had Josiah on here talking about how, it took him like 100 games or whatever to beat Jerome, but he finally did it. And, he did that much and more, and became one of the best players to play the game. Jay and Jeremy, they were, before Jay moved up to Michigan, they were playing all the time. And, he talked about how they, do phone calls every day talking about Redemption and wrestling and all that. But, it really is the iron sharpens iron thing. And it's been really cool to see how I think more players are getting some of that experience now than previously, like through Discord and the This Rules Temple deck building, Discord that Josh and Jay started, which I believe the invitation has been extended to anyone who's interested. You can reach out to
anyone that's breathing, I believe, is the only requirement.
There you go.
So anyone's welcome.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. So yeah, just seeing ideas constantly there, and people looking for games and playing on Lackey and everything in the main Discord. And I think that there's a lot more sharpening going on, and sharing of ideas to the point where we've got a lot of I feel like we have more competitive players in the game right now.
Yeah, like the competitive value scale, I think, is higher per player than like when I first started, because it seemed like you had like this elitist group of, okay, these are the good guys, and everyone's just trying to like work their way up to that level. And now I think like people are going to sit down, even if they don't necessarily know how to play it the best, they're going to sit down, and because of all the resources we have in the game, they're going to have a top level deck. Like somebody's like, I just copied this deck from Tyler or Jayden or something, and they sit down. Now they have a deck that's capable of winning almost at sometimes, regardless of the pilot, depending on the build and the matchup of who they're playing and whatnot. So they're sitting down with competent decks now, and then the play, just from having those decks in hand now more readily accessible, they're going to be making better plays and becoming better players, because once you've got a good deck, I mean, if you're able to, learn with that deck and play that deck, you start to pick up on some of the reasons that certain cards are included in that quote-unquote good deck from these good players, and you start to understand how these cards work together. And I feel like the overall skill level of players has risen dramatically since I started in the game in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like even just looking at, getting to meet the players in Brian's play group this past weekend was really cool. And, seeing the different decks they were playing, they were all kind of like lined up to play against Tyler. I mean, not physically lined up, but, they all wanted to play against him and, get some advice. And some of them were playing decks that they had, like taken from one of the videos I had posted, or one of the videos Tyler had posted. And, I think that it's a relatively young, as far as like, gameplay is concerned. Like it's a relatively young group. Like, Brian is just kind of getting back into the game, and I think he kind of is bringing these guys with him. And to see that the level that they were already playing at, it was pretty cool.
And they're all like very well mannered and whatnot. Like those
that too, yeah. They were all calling him Mr. Jones, which
Mr. Jones, look what I just pulled.
Which, yeah, I mean that's cool that they kind of have that level of respect for him, and now I might not kind of want to call him Mr. Jones now too. So
yeah, I mean, I'll call him Mr. Jones if I can pull an ultra rare plus Gabriel instead of a regular ultra rare His Sacrifice. I mean, I wasn't excited enough after pulling that His Sacrifice to call him Mr. Anything. Dude.
That's fair.
I can't believe you got the box that I should have gotten.
Dude, oh man.
That's insane.
I was kind of worried too, because the first ultra rare that I opened was just the regular ultra rare Gabriel, and I was like, oh man. But then it was
3 ultra rare pluses, including the Authority of Christ I've been chasing.
Dude, I will trade you this one if you got something for me.
I don't know, man. I wanted the feeling of popping a pack open and just getting to see that card.
That's fair.
And all of the winnings that we did last year. And I guess it's definitely a fair trade-off. But I really wanted the I guess the second plaque for teams. And Jeremy ended up, because he had the other plaques, he was like, yeah, I'll just get first pick of the promos. And obviously he took the ultra rare plus of Authority of Christ, but I got an extra plaque. So it balances out. So I've just been chasing it kind of since then. And I bought 2 of the 4 ultra rare plus, 4 ultra rare boxes, super pack boxes. And I think we ended up with 2 pluses out of all of those, and you got 3 out of 1 box.
Man.
Get out of here, man.
Well, at least we know that the overall ratios are about right.
I guess so. But now it seems we have rabbit trailed here. And you did say earlier that I was lucky that John didn't win, because then I wouldn't be able to do a short recording. Dude, we're 47 minutes in. I think we just got to cut you off here.
Oh, and that's not even counting the first few minutes before the disconnection that no one knows about because you edited it out.
Yeah, well, now you just told them, man. But if they can't tell that it was patched in, that means I'm doing my job, right?
That's true. Yep. If I gave it away, then it's only good things for you.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I will work on getting my voice strong so that at Nationals I can introduce you as the first ever Mr. and hold it, and we can do all that. Classic. Can't do it right now. But ladies and gentlemen, this is your first ever Mr. Classic. All he does is win. I mean, it's like the college version of Tim Tebow playing Redemption. All the man does is win. Jayden Alstad. So, you got any final words you want to sign off the people with?
Oh man!
Say keep it. You ruined it. You were just supposed to say keep it classic. Oh. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I mean, I got to go back to. It's like every time someone says that I don't lose, I have to go back and be like, oh no, there's a video of Jay beating me on my YouTube channel.
The one just video you keep referencing.
That's what he would point out. And he's like, I've beaten Jayden before. We've got video evidence, And he also beat me.
I'm actually the one person that's beaten Jayden on his channel. Jay would live it up.
But he did beat me on stream this weekend, in fact. So didn't quite get there in the classic event, but I'll blame it on the fact that I didn't put Falling Away in my deck because I couldn't find a Joyda.
Well, there you go. I mean, you got to let Jay have a little bit every now and then for all the gripe that we give him. So
yeah, he can win some of the little stuff.
Yeah, when it comes to nationals, he'll have to bow down to the Mr. Classic.
Yep. Rumor has it he's going to be there this year, so
rumor does have it. It's going to be fun having him back at nationals.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, this is Threshing Floor signing off. John Hendricks here, Mr. Classic. Peace.
Stay classic, everybody.
There you go. Cha-ching. All right, guys, that's going to do it for episode number 53. Want to thank you guys for listening along as we kind of shut the door on the Classic Invitational, Mr. Classic, that happened in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we turn our focus towards major tournament season with states and regionals happening all over the country as we get ready and we start the road to Nationals 2023, also in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we hope to see you there. Maybe our paths will cross along the tournament season, and if not, we'll see you at Nationals. Let's get ready.